Hey everyone, Shane Miller, partner at WPWealth. We're here for a very special episode on the WP Talks channel. Really excited about today's episode. We are live from the Sinclair Hotel in downtown Fort Worth. So we've got a new setup here and we've got a very exciting guest. I'm joined today by Jamey Ice. Jamey, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah.
People can't see what we're seeing, but we're literally looking out at a street. Is this Main Street?
Yeah.
Downtown. This is a sweet setup.
It's pretty sweet. I dig it. So, want to dive into kind of who you are, your origin story, what you're up to now, and then really talk about how, being a part of the Fort Worth community, how that inspired what you're doing for your business, and really what your vision is for the future of 6th Ave. So, if you wouldn't mind, maybe giving us how Jamey Ice came to be and what you're up to now.
That is all right.
Yeah.
We'll jump into it.
Just a little light starter question.
Just a light, tell us your story. I will say first and foremost, I am a Fort Worth native. I've lived within a 3-mile radius my entire life. Went to McLean, went to Pascal, went to TCU, which is one street over from Pascal. Yep. Have just lived here my entire life and just love our city. And my wife and I, my wife Melissa, just felt a commitment to how do we make an impact and how do we shape our city and how do we put our stamp on Fort Worth and could we leave it better than when we found it. Not meaning it's broken or anything wrong with it, but what does it look like to actually be a part of the community? Yeah. And so grew up in Fort Worth. I started playing music at a very early age. Me and my brother played Sweet Home Alabama in the middle school McLean Tower.
There you go. Yeah.
And then started a band called Green River Ordinance when I was 15 and he was 13. Yep. And so with Green River Ordinance, we signed a record deal with Capitol Records, but would have been my senior year of college. We traveled the country and did all sorts of stuff. Had songs on the radio, toured for a lot of years. But I remember our first time we were ever on a big tour, and we were in the Northeast. Never gone to the Northeast or New York.
Outside of the 3-mile radius.
Yep. Yeah, well, we had gone around Texas and the South, but it was my first time go to Philly and New York and Manhattan and Jersey and all these places. And I think when you're in high school, you always want to get out. And I think in my mind, I was I'm going to move to LA or Nashville or Austin or something. And I remember being in New Jersey and just missing Fort Worth and missing Texas. It was the first time I kind of had ever felt that. And I was driving the van at the time, and I put on Pat Green on our. And I never listened.
Shout out Pat.
I never listened to country. I never listened to Texas country. I was not a fan. Now I'm a fan of it. Yeah. But at the time I I remember in that moment being man, I love Fort Worth. I love where I'm from. I don't want to leave here. No. And so, that kind of solidified in my mind, just a love for the city. You want to get out when you're young, and then you realize how special the place is. Yeah. So I played music for 15 years. And then in 2011, 2012, my wife and I, with some friends, opened Brood, which is a restaurant, coffee shop, down on Magnolia Avenue. We took that and Brood opened a Dallas location, and there's a Brood location at DFW Airport, so I wound up expanding. I'm no longer a part of Brood, but that was a big. That was kind of my first other venture outside of music. And then right around that same time, Melissa, my wife, started The Net, which is a nonprofit. I know she was a guest of yours. Yeah. So she started a nonprofit literally, I think, in 2012, around the same time we were opening Brood. And then around that time too, we moved into the Fairmount neighborhood of Fort Worth, which is the oldest neighborhood in the city.
Yeah. And just for folks who aren't from Fort Worth, so kind of the Magnolia area in relation to Fairmount, pretty close by, right? Yeah. And so, and Fort Worth has kind of an interesting footprint. Everybody knows the stockyards, but we've really got a growing downtown area. We've got kind of the South Main and Magnolia, where there's a lot of small businesses, and then kind of the main West 7th.
And it was an area that when I was a kid, it was not a good area. It was, Magnolia wasn't what it was today, and Fairmount was not a great neighborhood. and always special because I had these cool houses and stuff. But anyways, we moved into Fairmount, which is in all these 1920 homes with front porches. Right around the same time Brood opened up because it was down the street from Brood. And anyways, I started renovating and flipping houses in our neighborhood with my best friend and from high school, Jimmy Williams. So we started flipping houses, and that kind of grew into this bigger thing. And we started a real estate company called 6th Avenue Homes from that. We wound up buying and selling and renovating 100-something historical properties in Fairmount. And then started posting what we were doing on Instagram and social media, and people kept calling us saying, "We love what you do. Can you help us buy or sell or renovate?" And so we wound up opening a company called 6th Avenue Homes, which is a one-stop shop real estate company that helps people buy, sell, design, and renovate. And that kind of took off and grew. And then shortly thereafter, Jimmy and I bought this big warehouse on South Main, and we put in some retail spaces, and there's a wine bar went in. Then we helped some friends. We developed this event space called the 411. So kind of launched this event space, which was a fun new venture, and did our first dabble in commercial real estate. And then most recently, I launched a company called 6th Avenue Storytelling, which is a marketing company. So long answer to your question. Fort Worth native, love Fort Worth, and just have worn a few different hats. I think probably at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. I love starting things. And kind of my first dip into small business was with Green River Ordnance. Like, I was a small business owner when I was 20 years old with this band. And when we dropped out of college, and my parents cut us off and said, "You're on your own." And so, had a small business from a very early age, and just learned about marketing and branding and running a business and starting things. And I've gotten to do a few fun things along the way. Super long intro.
No, it's perfect. Perfect. When I first moved to Fort Worth, I saw a sign. I can't remember where I saw it, but it said something to the effect of, if you're lucky enough to be in Fort Worth, you're lucky enough. And I think that's very true. Right. And so, I remember when we were talking about how when you were with the band, you really were thinking about this idea of, having a following, but how do we take the fan to be kind of a super fan, right? How do we get them to, tell their friends about us and, share our songs, over social media and all that kind of stuff. And you really took some of that really into the entrepreneurial side of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, so much of what I learned in music, I'm kind of doing today, and set me up for success with what I'm doing today. And really what 6th Avenue Storytelling is, which is our marketing company. But I was, to give you a little glimpse into my mind, I was all in Green River Ordnance. I was always less so the guy in the corner writing songs. Josh, our singer, is insanely talented. I wrote and did that, but I always loved the business side of it. And so I kind of wore a few different hats in the band. I marketed the band at different times. I managed the band at different times, acted as a booking agent at different times, acted as a record label at different times. And I just loved, even from in high school, I remember thinking how do I get people to know who we are? And I think one of and where I'm going with this and how it relates to other businesses, one of the big things, challenges, and sort of you hinted to it, was how do I take someone from a casual listener to a fan, a true fan, a super fan, someone that comes to every concert and buys every CD. We used to sell CDs, and all those things. And what I found was that the more people felt connected to us on a personal level, the more likely they were to kind of become that
next level fan.
And so a big part of our strategy really shifted when we first signed with Capitol Records and had our first kind of songs on radio and MTV. Our strategy was very much look how cool we are, and come to our concert and come buy our CD and come to these things. And as we captured this attention, but then how do you cultivate that? And so a big part of our marketing strategy shifted from look how cool we are to giving people a behind the scenes look and inviting people into our story. And so it was a lot of very content heavy of saying, here's what we're listening to in the bus. Here's what we're doing backstage. Here's my dog. Here's what we're eating for breakfast. Here's my wife. And so
it's more of a relatability, right?
More relatability. And so I'd show up in Minneapolis, and someone would come and be like, "Jamey, how's your dog Oliver?" And I'm like, I've never met this person, but they felt
amazing.
They knew me. And so, which was really special. And so when we opened Brood, part of my role was marketing Brood.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm going to try marketing this the way I marketed the band.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's going to look like inviting people into our story.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, from day one, I was like, with Brood, I was like, I'm not going to spend a penny on advertising. Because my theory is that as soon as you say, come buy this thing, and you show up on someone's phone and you say, come buy this thing, or show up on someone's radio and say, come buy this thing.
Yeah.
Show up on someone's TV and say, come, like, we tend to tune out.
Right.
And so, but I truly believe that when you tell story, when you invite people into a story, people listen, and that it's the best way for businesses to grow and market.
Yeah.
And so with Brood, we spend a lot of time and energy on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of saying, here's a cup of coffee, come buy it, which I think most businesses treat social media like advertising. Yes. And instead of saying, come buy this cup of coffee, we're like, we're never going to say that. Instead, we're going to say, here's where your coffee comes from, or here's John, our barista, and here's his story, who poured you the cup of coffee. Yeah. Here's Joe, one of our regulars, and here's his story. It's very story-driven and content-heavy, and it was a big part of our strategy. And the next thing we knew, Brood had more social media followers than any restaurant in Fort Worth at the time, because we were doing it differently. I was kind of using.
So the formula worked.
Yeah, the formula worked. All these people started coming in, and we had never opened or run a restaurant before, so there's a lot of growing pains, things to learn there. And then that's kind of the same thing with 6th Avenue Homes. I was posting the houses we were renovating on Instagram, and I think we're almost every other real estate company in town is like, here's a house, buy a house. Here's a house, buy. We were sort of inviting people into our story.
Yeah. Here's the progress on renovation.
Yeah,
here's a new family that just moved to town, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So all these people kept calling us, and I think in part because we looked different, we were doing something different.
Yeah.
But they kept calling us saying, "Hey, our real estate agent doesn't know about old houses. Can you give me advice?" Or, "Hey, we're trying to buy something. Can you give us advice?" And for a long time we said no. Yeah. We sort of realized that there was a need in the market for something different. Group of people that weren't being served. Yeah. Specifically people like me, because at the time, real estate, 2010, 11 was very suit and tie.
Yes.
And if you look, I am not very suit and tie, which is not bad. Nothing wrong with that. But I think there was a need for something different. At the same time, you have this new generation that cares a lot about originality. They want something that feels unique and their own, like millennials.
Oh, absolutely.
They want something that feels like them.
Yep.
And so in order to do that, you need to buy a house and then renovate it and make it your own.
Yep.
And so traditionally you have to, find a real estate agent, a contractor, a designer, all these things. And so we're like, let's put it all under one roof and do real estate a little different. And we're like, there's a need for that. And so we started 6th Avenue Homes. So all that being said, to your original question, so much of what I learned about marketing and storytelling and why we have a storytelling and marketing company, which is where I spend the majority of my time now, is things that I learned in the music industry.
Yeah. And so, from a business kind of skill set standpoint, you were learning a lot of that self-taught, or you were leaning on mentors or resources, or how did you kind of build that base business skill?
Man, that's a good question. I would say a lot of it was self-taught. I mean, especially in the music world, I was promoting things at 15. Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing, but so a lot of it was self-taught. A lot of it was trial and error. And then I'm an avid reader. I read a ton and listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff. And right around the time we launched 6th Avenue Homes, there's an author named Donald Miller. Who was one of my favorite authors. He was a Christian author. He wrote a book called Blue Like Jazz and a handful of others. And right around that time, he is working on this book and this framework called Story Brand, which is the idea that if you communicate in story, people will listen. And that resonates with everything my internal philosophy. Yeah. And so we went through that exercise, and it's the whole idea, like, if you communicate. Most businesses talk just about themselves. Hey, look at us. We've won these awards. We've been in business for 100 years. We're certified in this. Yeah. And your customer really just cares about themselves, And so if you communicate in your customer's story, here's what you want and here's how we make your life better. Yeah. People will listen. And I don't know that I have to explain that to you guys, because I mean, even the fact that we're sitting here on a podcast together, the fact that Willie Penn does that is that idea, right? Let's tell stories. Let's go deeper with people. Let's invite people into what's happening in Fort Worth and give advice.
Yeah.
You know, because this is a marketing tool for you guys.
Yeah.
But it's also a way to give back. It's a way to serve. It's a way to connect. And so I think even the fact that we're sitting here doing this is a testament that you guys kind of get that idea.
And I'll say that our founders always said that, you know, anybody can file your tax return. In fact, you have to file your tax return. But getting somebody who understands your business and can add value and be consultative and anticipate things that you're probably going to need, that's the difference, right? Yeah. And so, no, absolutely agree with that.
Because no one wants to file a tax return.
No.
But what they want is like, I don't, you know, especially what you do, like no one wants a wealth advisor,
right?
What they want is like, how do I make more money? How do I set myself up for success? How do I have legacy? How do I, remove worry? You know, how do I not go to jail?
we talk to folks all the time about, you know, at the end of the day, you probably don't care what you're invested in. All you care about is, I've worked really, really hard in my life to earn this money, and boy, I'd like to see my kiddos go to school, and I'd like to, you know, stop working if I want to, and I'd like to enjoy a second home or vacations and have memories. And none of that has to do with which stocks you're invested in, right? Yeah. And so really it's more of a they're problems to be solved. Yeah. And you know, ours are technical tools, right? But at the end of the day, people are engaging you because they have personal goals they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and that's their story.
Yes.
And when you communicate that, you speak to them in that, like that's when people listen.
Absolutely.
So that's a big part of what we do with 6th Avenue Storytelling, is help people communicate and understand and articulate, you know, the story that their business is telling for their customer.
And so through 6th Avenue Storytelling, we're talking earlier about you're using a podcast, right? And using video format. And so are you telling stories of, folks in the community or business contacts? What's the format for your podcast, and what's the goal there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have 6th Avenue Storytelling, which is a marketing company based on storytelling, which I know sounds very like fluffy and in the clouds. And a big part of that is like I said, helping businesses articulate a story and then market in a story-driven way. And then we also recently launched a podcast called Stories with Soul. Awesome. And the format of that podcast, and that's kind of presented by 6th Avenue Storytelling, because a big part, like the heart and the vision behind 6th Avenue Storytelling is to encourage entrepreneurship and make entrepreneurship easier for small businesses. Because I love entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. Yeah. And so part of my heart for creating 6th Avenue Storytelling was, can I share what I've learned about marketing and help other businesses, give them a roadmap and a path to follow. And so that's kind of the heart and the mission, which led us is to start the podcast. Right. And so the podcast for me was a couple things. One, it played into the mission of 6th Avenue Storytelling. And then two, I think as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as anyone in the community, like the way, there's kind of two ways you learn things. And the first is trial and error. Like you asked me that question, how'd you learn how to do it? Like, you learn by making mistakes, right? Trying things that didn't work, that cost me something, or that did work, ding, ding, ding. Yep. And so either by trial and error, or you learn from others, by being in proximity to people, by reading books, by doing some of these things. And so I think there's some incredible brands in Fort Worth. Oh yeah. And I think I am passionate about small business. I think small business is what makes a city special. But there's incredible brands in Fort Worth that have great stories. And then two, I feel like a lot of my success has come from being in proximity to people who have gone before me. Yeah. And getting advice from people and having mentors. And so part of my hope with 6th Avenue Storytelling was to shine light on people who have a great story and have built a great brand. And then two, give audiences and people listening an opportunity to have proximity to that person, to hear some of their wins and lessons and secrets and things they did, in the hopes of sparing them some mistakes. Yeah. And so So it's one part shining light on some rad people in our community.
Yeah.
And the second part is like hopefully it encourages or inspires or the lessons are shared.
Yeah.
For other kind of young people who are wanting to start a brand or chase their dreams.
And the thing that I think is so cool about the podcast format too is, if you read something, you kind of read it in this, monotone, fact gathering way, right? But if somebody has built a business or had an experience and you can feel the enthusiasm and the surprise or there's an energy in it that makes things more palpable, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it can be really compelling, especially if somebody is, why am I doing this? Well, let me tell you why, because you can sense that they're fired up about it.
You hear the heart.
Yeah, you hear the
soul,
heart. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think, and that's the idea of storytelling. And part of my philosophy on marketing is like, it's always about building trust. Yeah. And so the more someone knows you, going back to my principle with Green and Royal, the more someone knows you and feels connected to you, the more likely they are to support you.
Yep.
And so I think the neat thing about, and I think no matter, every relationship sort of has these 3 stages.
Yeah.
Whether it's a romantic relationship, or whether it's a friendship, or whether it's a business relationship. Of like, there's I meet someone, I'm interested in them, I'm informed, I now know a little bit more about you, and then a commitment. And so I think as businesses, a lot of times we tend to ask for a commitment without going through those other stages. And that's kind of like being at a bar and be like, hey, you look cool, you be my friend.
Yeah.
That's weird. You got to get to know each other.
Yeah.
Or being at a first date and be like, will you marry me? That's weird.
It's a little quick. Yeah.
When a business says, buy this, come buy this.
It's similar.
Yeah, it's similar. And so I think the cool thing in my mind about podcasts and this is you get to cultivate that relationship. You get to give people a deeper look and a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
And that's one of the part of our success we've had with 6th Avenue Homes and all these things is like people feel like they know us, and so the trust is already built.
Yep.
And so when I ask for the sale or ask for whatever, they're like, it's like a yes. Or people come to us, I don't have to ask them for a sale. They're like, we want to work with you because we know you and trust you, and we've built this relationship, so to speak.
Well, and I'll tell you, I was talking to a couple of friends at the office, and 2 of them said, "Oh yeah, 6th Avenue Homes. That's how I bought my house."
Oh, really? That's
so
cool.
And so immediately there's credibility. It's like, I know these guys. They're smart guys. They're not going to make bad decisions, and they chose to go with you. So it says a lot about your business. And the cool thing about the podcast too is we can ask these questions, and you don't have to answer it 100 times because the group of listeners has already kind of felt that, right?
Yeah.
And so no, that's interesting. So 6th Avenue Homes and storytelling. What is the thing that excites you most that you guys are working on right now?
That's a good question. I think, so 6th Avenue Homes is expanding and growing, which has been really fun because really that started as it was just a side hustle. Mm-hmm. We were restoring houses in our neighborhood and inviting our friends to come to come be my neighbor, and it grew into this kind of its own thing. We have like 35 real estate agents. We have the interior designers. We have construction project managers and all this team. But we're expanding. We're opening a couple more locations.
Awesome.
And so I think,
congrats.
Thank you. I think what we're doing is really unique. It's not a revolutionary idea, this one-stop shop, but no one else is doing it. Yeah. And I think part of our vision is how do we make home ownership easier and better and more fun. And so we've had a lot of success here, and so we want to take the model across the state of Texas.
Very cool.
And so our goal in the next 10 years is to have like 20 locations across the state. And so we just opened a Parker County office, so in Aledo. We're serving Aledo and Weatherford. And then we just announced yesterday that we're opening a Bell County, which is Temple and Belton.
I saw
Texas,
that. Yeah.
Which is random.
Yeah.
But no.
It's one of the 20.
Yeah,
right?
It's one of the 20. So we just opened that, and we're gonna goals to have a few more. So I'm excited about that. We're also expanding our services. We want to offer 6th Avenue lending. So like to really be a true one-stop shop, we want to offer. We help you finance it, and we help you find it, and we help you fix it, and we help you. all these things. And then 6th Avenue storytelling, which is again probably where I spend most of my day-to-day time, is exciting. Just because I get to help small businesses, and I get to do, I've sort of realized, man, entrepreneurship is what I love, and marketing, and
Yeah.
and so I get to that's fun. It's been fun to see that grow. That team has grown a lot. The brands we've worked with have grown a lot. And the other thing I really want to do that we're working on with 6th Avenue Storytelling is offering people a path. So even if you can't afford our services or can't afford an agency, here's my playbook. And so we're trying to put together a resource library of here's how you should do social media, here's how you should do email, here's how you should do websites. And so we're rolling out some of those in the coming year. But I really want to just create some tools and resources that make entrepreneurship and small business starting easier.
So obviously, doing what I do, but also I have a huge passion for financial literacy.
Yeah.
And so, there are certain things that you get priced out of, right? Or cost prohibitive in the early stages, right? But you still have that desire to help people.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I think having something like, a playbook of here's how you get started on your own. And then when you're on your feet and standing a little less wobbly, let's get back together and take it to the next level. I love that because I think that's unfortunate that there's, folks who want to pursue something, but they get priced out of it. Right. And so I think that's very interesting. And so one of the other questions I had for you was, obviously you've worked with all sorts of business owners and, all over the state of Texas, but also, traveling with the band. Is there anybody that you've encountered that just gave you amazing advice that just kind of stuck with you, that you've applied in your life?
Man, yeah, that's a good question. There has been a lot of those.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I think one of the first lessons I learned, like the very first gig we ever played with Green River Ordinance when I was literally 15, and my mom drove us in her minivan. Yeah. We played at this restaurant called Bad to the Bone Barbecue, which was I think it was down here off of Henderson. Doesn't exist anymore. But 150 of our friends showed up, and we packed it out, and it was really cool. And then we went to get paid, and the guy gave us $20. And I was like, "Hey man, we brought all these people. We made thousands of dollars." It's you got to pay your dues.
Really?
Wow. And I wanted to fight him, but I was 15. But just that, you got to work for it. You got to earn it.
Absolutely.
That was a very early lesson.
You learned the value of a contract there too. Right? Yeah.
I did learn that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of mistakes. I think another lesson someone told me once is if you're invited into the room, be in the room. Yeah. And so sometimes have an opinion, have a say, make yourself known. Yeah. And then I think another, which was huge one for me, was this idea of paying attention to your habits. I think it's probably one of the most. I don't know if anyone told me this. There's a friend of mine named Craig Couch who did this Facebook video, and it was pay attention to your habits, and it was all about his habits. And I was like, whoa, I never thought about that. Yeah. But the idea is that small little choices and small little things can make huge incremental differences. And so I am personally obsessed with habits. Yeah. What are my habits? Because if you can grow 1% a day, you can go just a little bit of it, it's compound interest.
Absolutely.
Versus doing these big life altering things. And so I just the idea of pay attention to your habits and making small choices and small intentional things to make yourself better or be better at what you do or serve people better pay giant dividends.
Have you read Atomic Habits?
Oh yeah, dude, I love Atomic Habits.
Yeah. So James Clear, and he talks about really so much of us focus on goal setting. Yep. But the reality is, if you set up your habits, the goal is inevitable. Yeah. Right. Your habits create the results. The processes ultimately lead you there. So,
yeah, because if you say, "Man, I want to lose 20 pounds," or "I want to, bench press 300 pounds," which I will never be able to do, that the habits are going to get you there. Showing up at the gym is going to get you there. Yep. And so that book was revolutionary for me. Just in the idea of forget goals. Yep. Well, goals are good, but when you focus on your habits, it's
transformational.
Yeah, transformational. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, so I wrote down a question. I get that this is a hard question. I get that. But I wanted to get your feedback on if somebody asked you, what's something only Jamey Ice could teach someone else or teach better than most?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say that thing would be?
That's a good question. I have kind of a complicated, weird answer to that.
Yeah.
I would say it's something to the effect of just doing what you love and chasing your dreams and not being afraid to take risks. And to set the stage for that a little bit, I was a philosophy major in college.
Okay.
I went in as a business major, and I took a calculus class, and I was like, my brain is not made to do this. So I switched to philosophy, much to my parents' chagrin.
Yeah.
But I loved it. And but I took an existentialism class. And existentialism is kind of like the postmodernism of the world. And the whole idea is like existence. You exist. Existence precedes essence, or you create your own meaning. You create your own destiny. You create your own future.
Yeah.
And I was in this class, and I remember reading these books about life is meaningless, which was very depressing. I did not believe life was meaningless, but if life is meaningless and there's no end and nothing matters, then there's freedom because you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And I was like, man, I guess so, but that sounds sad. And anyways, my faith is a big part of like my journey and story and what motivates me. And so I was like, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, you know what was way more freeing is when you know the end. And for me, because of my faith and what I believe, I'm like, God loves me, and I know that no matter what I can do, I can't screw that up.
That's freeing.
It's freeing. I was like, that's way more freeing.
Oh yeah.
And the world is meaningless and life has no meaning. Create your own meaning. I'm like, that's so. I had this realization, man. Like, no matter what I do, I know the end is good. It's kind of like if you had a lotto ticket in your pocket for $1 billion. It's like, it doesn't matter what you do that day because I got a freaking $1 billion.
Yeah.
And so that concept of knowing your identity and your destiny frees you to make mistakes and try things. So if I mess up, it doesn't matter because I know the end. I got this lotto ticket in my pocket. And so that idea, really allowed me to take some risks. Yeah. And I'm not a fan of just take risks for the sake of taking risks.
Sure.
But chase things that I loved.
Yeah.
And I think, to go back even a little bit to WP Cares, like impacting your city. I remember, so my wife is from Dallas. Don't hold that against her. But when we first got married, she was like, I don't know if I don't want to live in Fort Worth. It's such a small town. Yeah. And she got offered a job here, so we lived here for a little bit. But we were looking at homes in Austin and in LA and in Nashville because she felt very just kind of restless. Yeah. She was like, Fort Worth doesn't, and this is back in like 2008, 9, 10. Fort Worth didn't have all the stuff. This cool restaurant hotel right now. Didn't have the stuff that Austin had and Dallas had. And we prayed a lot about it. And she woke up one day and she was like, what if instead of going to a city that has things we like, what if we got to shape our city and bring those things here? And what would it look like if we helped make Fort Worth the city we want it to be? And what if and what does it look like if you died? Would your city miss you? Mm-hmm. And so really she had those ideas, and I was like, man, that convicted me. And so that really changed our course in a big way. That's when she opened the net right after that, and we opened Brood right after that, because we were like, let's, instead of complaining, what if we could contribute? So it's
the grass isn't greener, but the grass is green where you water it.
Yeah, dude.
Situation. So
make it green. Make it what you want it. So I think that idea of you making an impact on your city and then having the freedom, I think like my faith has given me the freedom to chase those things and not be afraid of failure. And some of them have failed. I've made some giant stupid mistakes and have not always done it right.
We all have. Yeah.
But so I think the one thing I could teach people, or I'm uniquely, is just, man, chase your dreams. And if you have your identity on solid ground, it frees you up to really make an impact and a legacy and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, Jamey, this has been awesome, and I so appreciate your time. If I know our listeners are going to want to get more engaged with 6 Storytelling, 6 Homes, podcast, where do they go to plug in?
That's a good. So my
Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can find me on any of those
big
things.
Stuff.
Yeah, my last name's Ice, which is easy to find. It's real.
Yeah,
it's my real last name. Jamey is Jamey. So you can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn or not Twitter. I don't do Twitter.
Yeah.
And then 6th Avenue Homes and 6th Avenue Storytelling.
There you go.
All of the social things.
Perfect. Well, if you need a home, now you know where to go. And I'll tell you what, if you think Jamey's great, just meet Melissa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good folks, good company. And so we're so pleased to have you. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this. Like, this is really cool. Yeah. And this is really, really revolutionary and cutting edge just for the industry that y'all are in. And I think it shows your heart. I think it shows that you care. And I think, you're bringing proximity to people who are doing neat things in our city and giving advice, and y'all are being very open-handed. I was listening to some of the other podcasts, and y'all just are very open-handed with your resources and things that you guys know about investing and planning and protecting all this stuff. It's cool.
Let's take care of our great state and all the offices that are coming for 6th Ave Homes and all the offices that Whitley Penn has all over the state. I think you're right. Let's water the grass here and make it green and make this an attractive place for us to live and grow and have great businesses. So, Jamey, thank you so much again. And please like, comment, share wherever you see this posted. And until next time, take care.
Sweet. Thank you.